that's the other piece around urgency on a spiritual piece for me is that, wait a minute, God didn't never let us down. Yes, we didn't always get things our way. Yes, it didn't always, the results weren't what we wanted, but we're still alive. We still got breath in our body. People didn't get that today.
Exactly. Sure, we didn't necessarily get the results we wanted, and I put that in quotes, because God knows what we need versus what we want. And if we're honest, if we're all honest, sure, the results aren't what we want, but 9 times out of 10, the results are usually better than what we
Come on.
wanted.
Come
If
on.
we're being real, if we're being
Come
real,
on.
firstly, let's kind of break down that sense of urgency piece, bro. Like that was so powerful. So obviously you first, took the assessment for yourself. You learned what your natural, behavior style is, which is flight attendant, and how you were kind of all over the place, and that caused procrastination. So what did you, obviously by now you mentioned the having that sense of urgency with your family. Once you took the assessment, like, was that your building block in terms of using your family as that sense of urgency, or did you use like another method at first to kind of
Yeah,
build
yeah,
that,
yeah.
up?
So for me, the role that the assessment played was helping me see all the ways, because again, it's preferences and limitations.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually exposed me on all the ways that I've been burning the candle at both ends and why I haven't been going anywhere. So
Yeah.
what the assessment did is, what it really showed me, like, oh, because you are feelings based, because you are feelings driven, because your preference is feelings, as a high flight attendant, as a high ground crew. So if you're in the disc, that's a high I and a high S. So there's that internal battle. Am I in front of the room or behind the room? Because those were pretty high scores. And so once the assessment started showing me, okay, this is why I didn't have the
Mm-hmm.
best connection with certain people in my life. This is why there was friction. This is why things never got done. Or on the other hand, this is why things did get done. So when Danielle and I did youth ministry for 10 years at our last church, not
Mm.
knowing about the assessment, we had all four of the roles within our team, which is why we were able to thrive the way we thrived,
Ah.
because I was kind of the face, the mouth of the ministry. Danielle was in the background because she's a high D and a high C, a high pilot and a high air traffic.
Yep.
So she's quick to make decisions, and the planning piece, that's just her jam, and she knows when to be each hat. And I think that's the other thing the assessment taught me. This is when you have to be your flight attendant self. And this is when you need to pull back and be a high ground crew. This is when you need to defer to your pilot. This is when you need to defer to your air traffic control and take instruction.
Yeah.
And that right there gave me a sense of urgency to stop. I know it sounds
Mm.
funny, right? The sense of urgency actually told me to stop, reassess, and notice where my energy levels were high and what was healthy and helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and keep doing that, and then stop everything else and figure out how to get better in those areas, or what we say is the people, the principle, right, or the person or the principle, like that. Then
Yep.
to figure out who can teach me, show me, or do I have the resources to say maybe this needs to be outsourced and just totally given away so that I can just take it off my plate.
Yeah.
And so the sense of urgency turned into two things for me there. Stop what you're doing so we don't continue to just like tear this thing down, or we're not, so that we continue to run at a healthy pace. And then number two, the urgency was now be urgent in who and how you look for others to help grow whatever you have in front of you. So whether it was a
Exactly.
ministry piece, whether it was for business. So now I'm in a phase of even going from solopreneur to entrepreneur. Right? You're not an entrepreneur if you're by yourself, or if you only got a handful of staff. And my wife doesn't count, right?
Ooh.
So that means, in refrain, in context, she counts 1,000%. But as an entrepreneur, it doesn't count. And so I said, okay, the sense of urgency I have now, aside from the things I shared earlier, because of the assessment, are, okay, Ray, let's talk. I'm going to take your lead. I'm going to trust completely because you are high pilot. This is what you do. So for those of you who don't have context, Ray is, the R2R pod. If you haven't checked this out, he is, if you are familiar with the ETA community, he is his own version of CJ, Carlos Quinney
That
Jr.,
part.
how he pushes things and wants to get things done because that's how he's wired. So with the flight assessment has now allowed me to see the value in those high D's. I see it in a personal and in my marriage. 15 years married, going strong. Like I can't really, say we've had a lot of turmoil, maybe one or two arguments, if that didn't even last a day or two, just because, faith, number one, number two, like our communication has been good since we've met. But in business,
Mhm.
that's when it was like, okay, I need someone else who understands the business model, who can help fly this plane. And so that sense of urgency to find the right people to help you grow. And then the ATC, it's funny you say that because I'm actually going to Dallas for my last trip of the year. I'll be in Dallas next week. And the day that I'm off, I'm going to be there Thursday through Sunday. The Friday I'm off, I'm meeting with someone who's in the space that I'm in, who is a high ATC and has done, who has built programs, national, some international programs, like from the ground up, taking the vision, taking everything, and just like, okay, here are the steps, here are the SOP. Like, and I have that meeting on Friday. So the
Ooh,
urgency is, yo, if you have an opportunity to meet with the people who have what you need or who can help you mutually, set that up. Don't procrastinate on that.
don't.
Don't,
Like, seriously.
don't, that, because that's where I faltered because many times, like throughout my year speaking, I would hear, "Oh, that's great. Do you have an album? You do music? Oh, do you have this?" And shame on me. I did a gig in February in Colorado Springs, and one of the gentlemen came up to me, and it was a meeting with all the directors, all these decision makers, and I did one of the songs. And again, I just do the songs just to engage. I don't. Not trying to be like a musician like that. I'm not trying to do concerts and sell out. Again, that's my plan. I don't know what God has planned, but he was like, "Hey, you really got something there. I loved how you tied your music into your message, into your all the things." He gave me his card and he was like, "Here, I do sound and audio for King and Country."
What?
Yes.
Wow.
For all, he goes, "I travel, I do all their sound, their lighting. If you got songs,
Wow.
here's my number."
That's huge.
Procrastinated. Procrastinated. So when I saw him at Indianapolis, because we were at Lucas Oil Stadium for
Mm-hmm.
King and Country, they did the opening session for music, praise and worship, and there he was again, and he remembered me, and he said, "Hey, I'm I'm still here. Just when you're ready."
Wow.
Right. So the urgency for me is now like, okay, the doors are opening. Doesn't mean it's gonna stay open.
Mm-hmm.
So calculated risks, right? Pull back, make sure you do the self-assessment, like really self-assess before you move, take those steps, but take the steps. Right. And I think that's something where so my sense of urgency now because of the assessment is anytime I connect with folks who are high in what I'm not, I'm a straight up student. I'm a
Mm.
straight up student. I'm gonna listen and I'm gonna act on what they're saying, even if I don't get it. And that's where I probably got stuck the most. So because I didn't understand it, because I didn't get it, I didn't move.
Ah, yes, that's true.
And that's what, part of what you're saying. Move past procrastination. Move. First word.
Yes.
Jesus said, "Go make disciples." All right. So move. And that is where most of us, myself included, got hung up because I got so frustrated because I didn't understand the language. And maybe it was a lack of my own trust or faith in myself. Right. All the things I started projecting out were really just stuff on the inside. The past is always present. So it was just coming back
Mm.
out.
Mm-hmm.
It was just coming back out and it paralyzed me. It paralyzed me. So, but now I'm like, okay, baby Savannah, by the time she's old enough to rock out to something, I want her to be able to like say, "That's my Lolo, that's my grandpa." That's in Filipino, right? It's
Yeah.
grandpa. Like I want her to when as we're building this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't make the steps, if I don't bet on myself, if I don't trust in all the ways that God already showed up for me, if I don't trust that this is also just a continuation to his plan and keep walking in that,
Right.
then I'll never be able to see God's plan fully revealed. And that's the other piece around urgency on a spiritual piece for me, is that, wait a minute, God didn't never let us down. Yes, we didn't always get things our way. Yes, it didn't always, the results weren't what we wanted, but we're still alive. We still got breath in our body. People didn't get that today.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
the urgency is that I want to see, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I'm, that whole like ready to die sentiment, like ready to see Jesus. That's facts. I am. But I know there's still work to do. There's still work to do here. Like I'm not afraid of death at all, because I know everything I'm doing every single day is in heart posture is right. Like intentions are there, and I'm putting the actions behind the faith. I'm putting the work in, that in public and in private. And I think that's where the other piece of potential people get stuck, because we're in our private lives stuck. We're in our
Mm,
private lives way too comfortable. We're in our private lives. No one knows, no one sees, no one's watching, no one to check in with. And then that just it's strong. That feeling is just so strong that it bleeds into our public life, and then we just kind of baby step or don't step at all.
absolutely. So yeah, gotta definitely touch on a few points there. So for one, what you just mentioned, which is congruity, like integrity, what you're doing in private versus what you do in the public eye. Like when you make those the same, your life becomes a lot less stressful because you're not having to balance so many different narratives at once. You're simply
Facts.
doing exactly what is natural to you. You know what I mean? So shout out to you for pointing that out. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on was like that, having that like sense of urgency. My brain went to Mignon Francois and like a couple other people, because it's like everything that God has given us, sure, we didn't necessarily get the results we wanted, and I put that in quotes, because God knows what we need versus what we want. And if we're honest, if we're all honest, sure, the results aren't what we want, but 9 times out of 10, the results are usually better than what we
Come on.
wanted.
Come
If
on.
we're being real, if we're being
Come
real,
on.
the results are usually better than what we wanted, even if the results are bittersweet. If the results involved a loss, um,
Mm,
Trav said it perfectly in the mastermind in June. He said there's always data in the loss. You know what I
mm.
mean? And that
Yep.
data, sometimes the data is what God wants us to extract. And sometimes that data is super powerful, because you're just like,
Yep.
oh, that was a blind spot and I didn't see that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And sometimes it takes the
Facts.
loss for us to see that, because we'll be stuck in that habit. We'll be stuck in that sense of habit. And then in terms
Yeah.
of that moving past, we're kind of tying in Carl too, guys. The moving past potential. Shout out to Carl Phillips. He's someone who's grounds crew as well. That's the S in the disc assessment, and that's something that he touches on. You mentioned the inner narrative that you were dealing with that was projecting out, because you said the past is always present. So if you're listening and that is a struggle for you and that's causing you to procrastinate, go back to what Rhy was saying about surrounding yourself with the right people, because not only will the accountability help you move forward, but if you have the right people around you, they will disrupt the narrative, because they'll hear you say something, or that narrative will like leak out and they'll be like, what is that? I don't recognize that. That's not you.
Come on.
You know what I mean? They
Yes.
will
I
they
love
will
it.
push you. Yeah, they will
I
push
love
you
it.
to who you want to be. And I mean, like, Rhy is an example of that for me personally, to be honest with you guys. And like even with Ray, like I've had this running nickname with those guys on the R2R podcast. I call Ray the good bully. You know what I'm saying? Like he pushes
Facts.
everybody.
He does.
He pushes
He does.
everybody. And that,
Yeah.
to your point, between having your wife Danielle, having Ray in your life, having all those other people, like it's important to have somebody that's pushing you, holding you accountable to what you said you wanted to do, but then also disrupting your narrative so you can actually hear the truth. Because God will
Mm.
always speak through other people.
Come
Like
on. Come
You're
on.
talking to yourself, but like God will speak to you through other people, and you have to be open to hear what they're saying and hear what He's saying through them.
Come on. Hey, so you'll use the word disrupt. So I got to jump in there. And this is where one of my favorite sayings, right? The devil will disrupt to distract, and God will disrupt to develop, right? The
Hmm.
devil will disrupt your life to distract, and God will disrupt to develop, right? This is one of E's like takeaways I got from him a while back. And so when I look at Danielle, one of my famous quotes for, and time and time again, just what you were saying, God doesn't always give you what you want, but he'll always give you what you need, because sometimes what you want isn't what you need.
That.
And so I call Danielle my unexpected blessing, because
Mm.
growing up in the Bay Area, Northern California, Vallejo, San Francisco, Daly City, all I knew was Filipino, like born and raised Filipino. I thought in my mind I was going to grow up and get married and have, kids, Filipino kids, all of that. And again, just I didn't hang out with a lot of folks outside of Filipino. I had a handful from different races, but I never thought I was going to see myself with a Caucasian lady. Straight up, just being flat out.
Being real.
But God was like, nope, boom, right?
Surprise.
Nope, boom, right? And our daughter was 9 when she was there. So like all the things that I thought I wanted, because how do we make God laugh? You just tell him your plan.
That
But
part.
he disrupted my life to develop something that I didn't really know I needed to have developed. Right. And so just a quick story, if I may.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, the moment I knew that Danielle was a godsend to me, here we are. We're going grocery shopping. Now, mind you, right? I was previously engaged. That's a whole nother story, different podcast.
Mm.
And then after some time, Danielle and I started seeing each other, and we were grocery shopping. And I had my own spot, right? To that point, single, bachelor pad. Like I go grocery shopping, I'm going for the day or the 2 days. Just get the meat,
Oh.
the beverages, whatever, the fruit, just the size. I'm cool. So Danielle and I, we go grocery shopping, and we going up and down every aisle.
Yep.
And I'm like, hold
She
up.
planning
I'm,
ahead.
I'm like, babe, and there it is, planning ahead. And she ATC in this thing. And I'm
Yes.
just like, can we just go? I was like, do we have to go down every aisle? And she's planning the breakfasts, the lunches, all of that. So mind you, Aja, our daughter was 9 at the time. And the thing she said that struck me was she paused in the middle of the grocery store and she said, when I was on food stamps,
Ooh.
food was the first priority. So no matter what happens, we got to make sure we have food.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we both worked at a hospital and, we were making good money,
Hmm.
but the mindset she had. And when she brought that to light, and I was like, oh, here I am being a jerk, just wanted to go home. No patience, no flight attendant self. Can we just get
Moving
the meal for
fast.
today and get it rolling? But that's when I knew in that moment, like at that time, I really had to pause and go, whoa, her life experience, her perspective put me in check. And I'm like, all right, God, I got you. I was like, I get it. Because prior to that, I didn't have, my past relationships, they weren't like that. That was not the dynamic. And
Hmm.
Danielle's, a few years older than me. So now, okay, I got something to learn. So back to just what you said, to disrupt. So for our viewers, those listening, my perspective, look at the ways that you're being disrupted. So now when I look at a disruption in my life, I always say the first thing I say is, okay, God, what are you trying to develop out of me now?
Mm, good. That's good.
Yeah. So thank you for letting me share that. I know she hates me telling that story, but hey, just got to keep it real. All right, this is how we get the win, and this is how we get
Yes.
past procrastination. All right,
That,
y'all.
that part. That part. Yeah. Having people around you to disrupt your narrative is so, so key. And, if you're someone who is in a situation where you may not be surrounded by a lot of quality people, Les Brown always says OQP, only quality people. Um, Maybe start from a distance first. Maybe start with watching folks like, Rhy with the Road to Results podcast, watch the Getting the Win show, you know what I mean? Study ET, study ET, the hip hop preacher. like learn his stuff. Because I'll be honest with you, Rhy, like I'm talking to you now in real time. You and I have met in person. That was back in I think October. Like from me first being exposed to ET in 2016 or 17 to meeting someone like you that is part of the ET orbit in October of 2023. You're talking 6 or 7 years. And if we're going by 2016, that's seven, the number of completion. So, like, sometimes it takes that amount of time to get something done. Don't use that as a license to procrastinate. Like, I'm getting up in your face right now. Don't do that. Use that as a sense of urgency. The fact that things
Mm,
do take time to fully develop and mature, you have to start right now from where you are because it's going to take as long as it's going to take.
that's
So,
it.
you know what I mean?
I
Start
love it.
with, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
No, no, go for it. I got
Yeah, I
you.
was gonna say, like, start with people that you can watch and follow from a distance and copy. You know what I mean? Copy the things that work. You know, if you're someone that follows Tony Robbins, the word he always uses is patterns. Like all the successful people, all the greats, they have a pattern. Follow what their patterns are. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Start there. And then as you transform, you'll start to attract the people that you want to be around anyway.
There it is.
Go
There it is.
ahead.
Yeah. No, I love that. And again, depending, like you said, it's gonna take as long as it's gonna take. And like we've learned, like we hear time and time again, work while you wait.
Mm-hmm.
Work while you wait. Like all the opportunities that I'm able to have now in the different spaces I'm in, believe there is a lot of work going on in the background, whether they're, reps, whether it's preparation. But like, I would always give this kind of counsel to young men who would go to me and be like, yo, bro, Rye, if I just had a lady, my life will be perfect. That's all I need right now. And these are young men, right? I'm talking like 18, 19, 20 years old, even sometimes younger than that. When they would come to me when I was working, with the youth and young adult ministries. And I'm like, really? Why is that? And they're like, well, because, I'm doing good in school and, I feel like I'm being responsible. I'm getting right with God, all this stuff. And I said, all right, let's be real, little homie. If the girl of your dreams came like into the picture today, are you really gonna be comfortable saying, "Yeah, let's go back to my parents' place"?
Oh,
Right?
oh,
I'm always like, if the girl of your dream. Now, granted, this generation is a whole different. That's a whole different topic. But just back then, in full context, it was like, can you support a family? You
yeah.
don't even got medical benefits for yourself.
Mm,
So there's a reason that God is developing you and maturing you, because if the girl of your dreams, the one like the one came today, like you said, like she gonna walk away real quick, because at the end of the day, are you even able to provide mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially? Right. And so, yeah, just to go into what you were saying, like the maturation process, it takes time. But in the meantime, you work while you wait. Work on yourself. There's plenty of areas, and that's what the assessment is great for. And then if you start getting those, and I'm gonna just add on to that, right? Get those small wins, y'all, for reals. Make a list of small wins as you go, daily, weekly, monthly, all the things that you've been procrastinating on. Make that list, put it out there, prioritize that thing. And through this show, just go back to the episode, just see what the nuggets that people are sharing to help you really get the win, no matter how small, how big, and really like stop procrastinating, because I think that really is um what paralyzes so many people. And then we look back, and after we get to the other side, we're like, man, that's all it was, or it wasn't
right,
as bad as we thought.
right, right. And Jamal King talks about that all the time. If you guys haven't listened to the Secret to Success podcast, like Jamal is big on that. He's like, the boogeyman ain't real. End quote. Like he says that all the time. The boogeyman is not real. It don't
Seriously. and
exist.
and
It's not as big as you think it is.
and I'm gonna shout my wife out because I'm so proud of her. She had two closings. She does real estate, and yeah, she just got started. She was part of the Make Real Estate Real community, and she still is. And that's how she got inspired. Her and Ray and Jamal King and Ray inspired her. And just what, last week, she or
Yeah.
this earlier this week, the week of Thanksgiving, she had a double closing on the same day. Same client too. Just worked out that way where the
Wow.
client sold her house and then purchased her new house.
Wow.
So to make, again, I'm, let's just say five figures in a day, when that hits the account, and it's like, it's possible. Right? Like, and up until this point, we've had some really, I've had some really good months or even days, but like for 2023 right here, right now,
Hmm.
despite the economy, despite the world, all the different things, the fact that like for her now is like, ooh, like we got to the other side in the sense of like, oh, that wasn't as hard as, or it didn't take as long as,
Right.
or now we're actually becoming the ones we saw, like you said, from a
Ooh.
distance. And I want to just share what Danielle said when she went to a conference in San Antonio earlier this year. She's with EXP
Yeah.
Realty, that's the brokerage. She went to build. It's one of the conferences in 2023 in San Antonio. She came back and she said what motivated her was that she saw, and then they were in the back. Like, I love what you said from a distance. They stayed in the back. I was like, why y'all in the back? She's sending me pictures or whatever. But she came home and she said, the fact that I saw people just like me and you, they
Mm.
shared their stories, they're human beings. I got to meet them. They're approachable. They got the same struggles, the same 24 hours that we got. And to see what they're earning now because of what they started a couple years ago. And I mean, we're talking six-figure a month earners and beyond. So she's like, so my little five-figure day, I mean, it's a win, right? And but when we look at it, we're like, oh, we can actually. So her whole thing was like when she saw it and met people, like she was like, oh, I could do this.
Yeah.
And she's been procrastinating for a good minute. And but now, like you said, once you get to the other side and you actually see that the boogeyman really wasn't, it really wasn't that bad that maybe some people make it seem to sound like, or maybe you told yourself in private.
Hmm. The narrative.
It's the narrative. It's the narrative. So yeah,
Yeah.
sorry I had to shout that out because I was just like, wow, like I
That's
can't believe
awesome.
like she, yeah, it's funny. And the crazy part was her mindset is like it dropped. She's like, all right, on to the next. Let's like her mindset now is like, let's keep this going. And I'm like, I'm
Yep.
so proud of her. I'm so proud of
Yeah.
her. So
Absolutely. So a couple things as we wrap up. Real quick with what you're talking about, with what you're talking about there. Um, that is important to be able to see people that are like you, that are able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Like that alone is a huge like fire under your butt. You
mm,
know what I mean? To
mm-hmm.
get you moving. You know, the benefit of studying people more closely and having podcasts like this one is that you start to hear people on a more micro level. You start to hear them on the day-to-day level. So like you listening to Ray and Rhy, you listen to ET and the crew, you start hearing them on the day-to-day level and you realize, oh, they're not like as far away from me as I thought. Like they're actually more like me than I realized. And then you hear what they accomplish and you're like, oh, I can do that. I can do that. So I love that, Danielle was able to pull that from her experience. And she's like, all right, on to the next. That's a pilot thing
Yeah,
too. That's a pilot thing. So
yeah,
for
it
those of
is.
you, again, like,
Pilots like to hunt. They just like to
they
hunt.
love
That's
to
all
hunt.
she likes to do is
It's
hunt.
the
So
challenge. It's the challenge. And
yeah,
one of the things I wanted to mention earlier, to one of your earlier points is when you're saying the small wins, and guys, like just put them all in the same boat. Like a win is a win. You know what I'm
that's
saying?
it.
But one of the things, I don't know if you follow Ed Milet, but one of the things that ET loves to share is the definition of self-confidence is keeping the promises you make to yourself. That's
Mm,
how Ed Milet always defines it. Keep the promises you make to yourself.
that's it.
You know what I mean? And
That's
that
it.
is a powerful thing. So I wanted to share that one thing before I move into this last part, which is huge. Y'all see the familiar vortex on Rhy's screen and the R2R logo on the bottom. Definitely wanted to get into the R2R podcast, bro. Like talk about like what made you guys decide to come together to do a podcast? Because obviously we know what the podcast is for. Like you guys are
Mm-hmm.
chronicling, at least at the beginning, you're
Yep.
chronicling the 52 weeks of the UOU mastermind. But what made the two of you decide to come together to do a podcast in the first place? Because you guys were developing a friendship anyway. But
Yeah.
talk about what made you decide to do the podcast and then turn it into a business.
So I'm gonna just kind of go back to what you said earlier about being relatable. People seeing, people looking at you and seeing themselves in you.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the work that I do for my communities that I serve, especially, being person of color, Filipino, like a lot of the places that I'm starting to, I might be the only one that's like, especially in like the church space, the Catholic church
Mm-hmm.
space, like Filipino that's not a priest or a nun, right? That's actually having a keynote, that's getting opportunities. It's not a lot. And so it's important for me that yes, I'm in this world, but not of it.
Right.
So I said, how can I take everything that I'm doing and share it in the ways? Because I got a YouTube channel. I've been trying to like figure out how to, build a mindset, be inspirational, share the faith, share the principles, all the things. So when we jumped into mastermind, I was like, oh, you know what? I honestly had a dream. It was like a one night I had a dream and I said, yo, I got to do a podcast with Ray.
Oh.
And what it was we met back in Phenomenal Life 2022 briefly.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Danielle hit it off. Like we were all in both of our groups where we were in the pool hanging out. They started talking real estate. You know how Ray, he gets in, he goes in. And so if Danielle's giving you time and she's co-signing on you, I'm like, okay, we gotta keep growing and building this relationship. So we saw each other at um, Chicago 120.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw each other at the mastermind. And those were the only times that we really contacted each other outside of like Facebook. So
Mm-hmm.
like we didn't know each other before Phenomenal Life, even from Phenomenal Life to 120 Facebook, if anything, are you going? Or cool, see you there, like that type of thing. And then when the mastermind started, I said, I want to document this journey. I want to share with all of our communities how we're doing this on in real time.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're always gonna get that, oh, how'd you do it? Or I want like, no, here, we're gonna unpack that for you. 52 videos. Here's what we're thinking, here's what we're going through. But Ray was on my heart, like, yo, I gotta do something with this guy because number one, he is a pilot, he is a driver, and he
Yeah.
brings a fresh perspective that I feel like no matter, we're industry agnostic. The R2R podcast is industry agnostic. So he does real estate, he does investments, I do SEO, EQ work, faith-based work. Like we were showing that no matter what industry you're in, the principles that we share, the
Right.
mindset that we're uncovering, it still can get you on the road to your results. And so I brought the concept to him. He said, let's do it. We just started like turning the Zooms on. So you see episode one all the way to now from all the tech issues. Cause, we don't have a background. Neither him and I have like a real background in AV. I have a little bit just because I've, dibbled and dabbled just to stay with the people with during COVID. That's the only reason I know of all this stuff because I wanted to stay connected with my schools. The
Nice.
urgency. So let's talk about
Yeah.
urgency. My urgency was I need to see my kids. So I was doing retreat videos for my eighth graders. I was zooming into classrooms even before Zoom was even a platform. I said, let me just give me an opportunity to reach my babies, my students, my parents. Like, let me. So all of this, I said, and because I'm a high flight attendant, let me give them the best experience.
Yeah.
Possible. Oh, my bad. You see what I'm saying? So we just switch it up.
And you know what I mean? Like that's just what we do, right? So all of that came about, and I was like, all right, so I want to give the experience, and I said, okay, now let's do this and bring the podcast. So Ray said yes, so we just started recording, and then as time went on, this was just for a really project for me and him, just to record it for us, whether people followed or not, and then Road to Results started getting a little catchy. Then we started doing interviews
Oh
at
man.
Phenomenal Life. And that was all Ray. Ray piloted that whole thing. He was like, bro,
I know.
bring the stuff. We're going to interview. I was just trying to hang out with him. I thought we were going to do one episode, me and him. All of a sudden, here's ET, first day at lunch. And y'all were there. It was like, the folks that were there were like, yo, E said, go to the chapel. I said, what? So I put my food down. We dropped everything and ran up to the chapel. Got the camera, top of the
Top of
mountain
the mountain.
experience. Yes.
Yep.
And And then as we just started growing, we started thinking like, you know what, there's actually a blueprint here, right? We
Mhm.
got secrets to success, as you say, traits of the greats. So what did ETA, CJ, Carl, and Maul and all them do to serve the communities that they served? And in our mind, we're like, okay, we have our own respective communities along with our, family from ETA. So let's put something together. And then we started doing it more and more. Then he started getting more opportunities. I started getting more opportunities just to speak or coach or just, counsel, whatever it might be. And then
Yeah.
we said, yo, let's create a community. And that's when we started going live on Facebook, live on YouTube for folks when we're actually recording the podcast so people can drop in, ask questions. And then once we started seeing that, oh, there's value in this because people from my in California, his folks in Texas, and then our ETA fam, like everyone's
Yep.
getting asking questions. We started interacting. That's when we said, okay, we have to do something. Like this is more than just the documentation, which is going to still be great. The 52 weeks, but as you know, and you're on this project with us, we're taking the documentation and we're creating a curriculum. And we talked about the 5 C's, the vision to fruition circle the other day. And so what we said was, again, just full transparency, we incorporated the R to our podcast. And that is going to be the umbrella of some of the DBAs that are going to go under what we're going to be doing. So live events is in the works, but more importantly, we want to part of our plan is not just Ray and us, but us collaborating with other folks. So even the people in our community, we want to be able to take them from vision to fruition, A to B, and provide them resources that we've used ourselves.
Right.
So we're looking at clarity. That'd probably be him and I doing the coaching. I'll do the EQ piece, and he does the direction piece. See, the 1-2 punch is he's 12% of the world, technically speaking, like a high
Yeah.
pilot. So I gotta get the other 88% of the world prepared to work with people like Ray. That's why my work is important because 88% of my students,
Yes.
my teachers, and my staff
Yes.
cannot handle a person like Ray if they don't have the EQ or the capacity or the understanding.
Very true.
So that's clarity. And then of course, curriculum.
Hmm.
Okay, you have something, let's really flesh it out to create the content. Now, where are we going to put that content? And so we're looking at, again, even services all the way through from a curriculum person to a graphic designer person to a website person to all the things within our network. But we want to be the sort of guinea pigs, quote unquote. So we're using all the services first so that when we do send them or co-sign and provide the services, like we create those mutual partnerships
Yeah.
so that we can say, hey, road to results from start to finish, vision to fruition, and let's keep that cycle going. So yeah, so that was really, I mean, it became that. And so we said, okay, we're gonna see where this goes. And so we bootstrapped all the things that we're putting into it. We said we're not gonna put our personal money into this because we said let's just see if we can really build it with what we got with the resources we got.
Correct.
And so we got our first sponsor. Shout out to
Mike
Absolute Comfort and
Haney.
Son LLC. Our folks Mike and Kathy Haney out of York, Pennsylvania, who said, okay, no, let's see this grow. And so now you're gonna start seeing paid ads. That's the next step. We did our first 30 days with our podcast team that we hired with the resources that we got with the sponsorship. And so it's a 90-day kind of program just to, after 90 days, we're going to figure out if this is working or not. Are we going to stay on with them or not? So all the YouTube shorts, all the captions, all the thumbnails, all the things. And Ray said, because we can't do it. We
Right.
decided we're not going to. But if
Takes
it
a
does
lot.
work out well, which we believe it will, now we're going to add more people to our network to be able to help others who are on the road to results at least be an option for them. And so yeah, so our vision got bigger. We're actually meeting before the end of the year to map out the entire 2024 in quarters and chunks, how we want to, because we were looking to do some physical meetups, obviously do some type of online cohort, and then be realistically with what we want to offer, and then what are the different tiers in our offerings as we're still growing and developing as well. But no, it became a full income stream, potential income stream. And it wasn't even in the plans. It wasn't in the plans.
That was God doing his thing again. You know what I
That's
mean?
it. We
You
let
know,
God steer. LGS, let God steer. Was that,
absolutely.
did I answer, did I answer your
That
question?
you did.
All
You
right,
did
cool.
fully. So let people know where they can find you in terms of Reach Academy, in terms of the R2R, and then, you know, anywhere else that you want people to be able to
Yeah,
contact.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll be sure to send you just a little short bio with all the links for the description box. But just, my Instagram, obviously at I am bro Rhy, and at Rhyan RHYAN underscore Ramirez RAMIREZ, brorhy.com, BRORHY.com. And majority of the links for everything that I do are there. So Reach Academy is going to actually be coming up in Q1. It's going to be, I have reachftio.com. I'll just say it now, reachftio, and that stands from the inside out.
Mhm.
.com will be the main hub where we're going to be hosting all of the different ways you can learn about Reach Academy, which we're going to have, again, I'm going to have a monthly free meetup. Then we're going to be doing some quarterly boot camps, and then 2 cohorts in 2024 that are 8 weeks long. And then just all of the ways you can just continue to grow in EQ to be the best you. So, or to be the most authentic you. But yeah, we'll definitely leave all those descriptions in. And I just want to shout out Melissa Thomas. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Vision to fruition. I can say hands down, I will co-sign. I will co-sign and put a stamp on it that from the first time that we met and did a little work together with some of the projects behind the scenes to just the way you show up, every day, not just for the community, but for yourself, has been so inspiring. So everything that you're doing and that you got going on in the background or even in the front lines, I'm super thankful to be a part of your journey on your road to results. And just know that this is just the beginning. So I'm calling it now. We're not goal setters, we're goal getters.
Y'all
And
see it.
Melissa Thomas, she's getting the win because all we do is win.
You
Let's
win
go, y'all.
no matter what.
No
Awesome.
matter what.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Rhy. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. And again, the door is open. Feel free to come back on the show whenever any of those things start to launch. You know, we'd love to share the updates with our audience here so they can support you guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what were your parents' name?
Oh yeah,
Names?
Rosalie and Jay. Rosalie and Jay Thomas.
Rosalie and Jay Thomas, this message is for you. Thank you for rocking with us and just, spending time with Ray and I. Ray and I were super humbled and thankful when we saw a pic of Melissa sharing that, we were on your playlist, on your big screen. So Rosalie and Jay, thank you so much for, number one, being who you are and just the way that you have poured into Melissa, because the fruits of your labor are truly showing. So just want to give a personal shout out to your parents. So
Appreciate you.
all right, y'all. All right,
Yes.
we out of here. My bad. Do you have a closing? I'm out here trying to close it up. See, high
Hey,
flight
why
attendant.
not?
I'm like, all right, y'all.
What I do tell my folks is hashtag get on that. Whatever that is that they've been sitting on, we've branded that project that they procrastinate on their hashtag luxury item. So make sure you get on that luxury item. Yes. And again,
Let's go.
List your wins in the comments this week and let us know how we can help you. You know what I mean? Rhy will be in the comments if you have any questions for him, when the show airs. So be sure to continue to stay on top of that luxury item. We want to see you win too. We want to celebrate the win with you.
Let's go. Let's go. Yeah. Hashtag get on it. All right, fam.
Thanks so much. You take care.
Peace.
Peace. And it is the holiday season, guys, so be sure to check out the merch shop if you are curious about the shirt, you want one for yourself. That way you see this shirt, you'll see a bunch of other accessories as well. We've got hoodies, we've got sweats, we've got all the gifts that you could possibly want to buy for yourself and for your folks to get the message out about being as productive as possible and staying true to yourself. Because the mission of this show is to turn procrastinators into producers. That's why I always task you guys to hashtag get on that. Make sure you're on top of your luxury item And that way you can rock the gear to remind the world that you are all about that luxury item. You are all about getting things done, getting the goals instead of simply setting them.